In this video, we will explore some of the advanced modes for rotoscoping using polyline and B-spline effect masks in Fusion 5. Start by adding a polygon mask tool to the composition by locating the PLY or polygon button in the toolbar buttons across the top of the screen. Click once to add it to your flow. View the polygon mask in the display view in order to show the mask. Note that the polygon mask does not need to be connected to another tool. If the polygon mask is not connected to a tool, then the size of the polygon mask will be determined by the size of your frame format preferences. In this case, my frame format preferences are set to PAL Plus 16 by 9. I've also set the composition so that the frame range is 0 to 10. Once again, set your polyline toolbar to icons and text labels to make them easier to see. Let's create our polygon shape mask by clicking and dragging. However, as you click, drag each point to create a soft shape. And then, of course, just click once to close the shape. Use Shift-S to smooth the remaining points. There are 4 transformation modes that are worth discussing when it comes to affecting polylines. These are the S, the T, the X, and the Y keyboard shortcuts. To demonstrate, select all 4 points, then hold the S key down on your keyboard, then click and drag. This will cause the shape to change shape or scale using the center of your mouse pointer as the center of the transformation. Wherever you click when you first position the mouse pointer will be the center of the scale. For example, if I place my mouse pointer in the top corner of the image, hold the S key down and click, then the center of the scale becomes the top corner of the image. The T key can be used to twist the points using the center of the mouse pointer again. So if I place my mouse pointer in the bottom left corner, hold the T key down, and then click and drag, I'm twisting using the bottom corner of the image as the center of my twist. Were I to place the mouse pointer in the center of the image and then click, I would be rotating around that center instead. The X and the Y keys can be used to scale on the X or the Y axes only. Select the top 2 points to demonstrate, hold the X key down, and then click and drag to the left or the right to scale on the X axis only. Hold the Y key down to scale on the Y axis only. An additional technique for adjusting the shape of a spline is the shape box. Select all 4 points on the shape, then select the shape box button in the toolbar on the left or use Shift B. This will display a box around the shape. You can use this box to scale the shape on either the X or the Y axes individually, and by selecting the bottom one, then you scale it using the bottom and leaving the top fixed, or by the top, you scale using the top, leaving the bottom fixed. If you hold the Control key down, then you can scale both sides simultaneously around the center of the shape box. You can use the angle corner points to either scale both X and Y axes separately or as one move, or by holding the Shift key down, you can create a taper to the shape, generating much more complex shape boxes. When you've done creating the shape that you're interested in, click on the Shape Box button again to disable Shape Box mode or use Shift B. So far, we've adjusted all of our points by clicking and dragging them to position them where we wish them to be. This is the visual method of adjusting the points. Fusion also provides an Edit Points dialog, which can be accessed by selecting the polygon menu and then choosing Edit Point from the menu. You can also display this dialog by hitting the E key on your keyboard. Initially, the dialog is set to group mode, which means that the X and the Y buttons are both showing the average on the X-axis for all 4 points or the average on the Y-axis for all 4 points. Switch to individual mode to allow you to switch from one point to the next, seeing the individual values for each selected point. Return to group mode, then select only 2 of the points in the menu. While in individual mode, you can change the precise XY position of each selected point. For example, to change the position of this point on the X-axis so that instead of 0.4 it is 0.45, we would simply change the value from 0.4 to 0.45. To return it to 0.4, we'll type 0.4 again. Then we would move on to the next point and adjust its specific point as well. So to change the x-axis to 0.454, we would then just type in 0.54, moving from point to point for the effect that we wish. The Point Editor dialog has 2 modes, Group Mode and Individual. While group mode is selected, we see an average of the x and the y values for all of the selected points. So the average of all of the points that are currently selected is 5174. By switching to individual mode, you can access the values for each individual point. So, for example, the currently selected point, which is shown as a large red box, has the x position of 0.4 and the y position of 0.65. To move from point to point, simply click on the Next button, and it will rotate clockwise through the points that are available on the polyline. To change the position of a point, simply type the new value for the point's position into the dialog. Return to group mode, and then select only the top 2 points on the shape. This shows you the average for those 2 points' position. To change both points so that they share the same position on the y-axis, click on the y-axis and change the value to the desired position, in this case, 0.7. Both points will be adjusted so that they're at 0.7 without changing the position on the x-axis. Click on the Y button to change it to Y offset mode. Using this method, you can now type in a value to offset both of the controls simultaneously. So negative 0.1 would move those points only slightly along the y-axis. Hit Ctrl-Z to undo the most recent change. Click once on the Y button to change it from Y's absolute position to a Y offset position. This option can be used to type in offsets for the selected points. For example, to change the offset from the current position of 0.7 and to subtract 0.1 from the position on the y-axis, simply type in negative 0.1 and hit Enter. The Y offset returns to 0 so that you're ready to offset it again. Close the Edit Points dialog, then change your current time to frame 10. Let's animate the shape of our polyline slightly by adjusting the position of the points and resizing it and perhaps twisting it slightly using the techniques we learned earlier in this video. Now if we observe the animation over time, we can see we have a very simple animation of those points. At frame 5, we'll just change the animation so that it's a little bit more complex in the animation. The purpose of these changes was to demonstrate the concept of publishing a point to a path. Currently, the interpolation of the points is linear from one position keyframe to the next. If we select this point on the bottom left corner of the shape, and then select the Publish to a Path button on the toolbar button, that point will be removed from the poly change animation, so it is no longer animated along with the other 3 points. Instead, it is connected to its own individual path control. When you look in the Modifiers tab, you can see that that point has been connected to a path. You can now see exactly how that point is interpolating along the animation that's been applied. So if we wanted to apply a much smoother interpolation at the center, then we could select the center point on the path, smooth it, and change the way that we interpolate the point in that path. While publishing a point to a path preserves the animation that you had already applied to the point, you can also choose to publish a point without publishing to a path. You do that by selecting Publish Points or Shift-P. This will publish that point, removing it from the animation spline. However, the original animation is not preserved. This is most often used when you're either going to create a path manually by selecting the point and choosing Animate or Path, or when you're going to modify that point with a tracker or by connecting it to another path somewhere in the composition. This concludes our tutorial on advanced polyline modes. In our next video, we will cover double-edged polylines for non-uniform softness along the edges of the polyline shape.